All right, so nice to see everyone again. Go ahead and sit with your shins crossed, one in front of the other. Put the foot underneath the knee of each foot, so the shins are farther forward than what you're used to. And so with your shins and feet forward like that, flex your feet and keep the feet flexed so that there's a buoyancy, or the thighs and knees lift a little bit, which may be contrary to, the idea that everything has to get to the floor or be flat. It's not what we're going towards here. So when you keep the feet flexed like that, push the hands down into the thighs so you can lift the spine up tall. Take a breath, lifting not just the chest up, but lift the whole upper torso up a little. Exhale, drop the shoulders, but keep the lift of your chest. Place the hands on the thighs again, pressing down. This time when you take your deep breath in, let the ribs expand. Exhale, draw your back ribs in towards each other. Stretch your side ribs forward. Lift your front ribs up. So you've got the big expanded domed rib cage. And then drop the shoulders, but keep that lift. Let your head chin lift, your head move back slightly so it's reset on the neck, away from the, looking down spot. So your gaze is outward. Still feet flexed, thighs engaged. Shoulders relaxed, arms drawn in slightly and relaxed. Let your eyes close. So as you let your eyes close, you start settling into this position just as you settle into every other yoga position you're in. You start to connect to and feel what's going on in the body. It's easy, I think, to feel separate from the body. You wake up one day, something aches. Don't even know how it happened. You wake up, got a new pain, you're more stiff. That process of aging and all the things that we go through sometimes feel like they just sneak up on us. But that's a disconnect. And there's an old teaching that says that we are not separate from our minds. The separation between us and what we go through is an illusion. But it can often feel like things happen to us we don't know about. Even our thoughts can seem separate from ourselves. So for just the next few moments, feel what's going on in the body. Connect to it. And at least on some level, recognize that your life lived is recorded in the body, carried in your body. That whatever thoughts come up, you are not just the observer of, but those are you too. And that by connecting to them, we ultimately get some level of control. And then the power to choose what's important, to choose what we act on. Including nothing. We refine that ability to act on emptiness and stillness, so that those thoughts aren't there, because when we are connected to them and we develop that control, we can choose for there to be none there. We are not separate from our thoughts or our experiences. That separation is an illusion, as the old Vedantic saying goes. So in practice, though, my friends, when we're on the mat, we're doing our work, not just the work that the teacher is taking you through, but when you're on your yoga mat and your time when there's no one else around or whatnot. Begin to recognize that if anytime that you might feel separate from what's going on in your body, like you're just doing it to yourself, and try to find new ways to continue to connect to your practice. Whether it's the emotional connection, what comes up during that work, or you find new language or insights to it. Because like I said, everything we go through is recorded in the body. Yoga lets us see those things, connect to those things, and ultimately gain freedom from those things. So let today be a practice of that, you connecting to more of your practice in some way, recognizing how certain things may want to disconnect you from it, distractions, the ego. Don't let them reinforce the illusion. And even though your work may be hard, may be sad, may be happy, may be silly, it is yours. And it's beautiful and wonderful in those ways. Take a nice deep breath in, bring the palms together, thumbs touching the chest. We'll shortly 3 times and we'll begin. Take a nice deep breath in. Om. Flex your feet still. Om. Head lifted, chest up. Om. Bow your head for a moment. Salute the essence of yoga that's inside yourself. Bring your hands into your lap. The head rise. And the eyes open. Great. So nice to see everybody. Let's go ahead and come to a standing position. Do some few standing poses, maybe some shoulder back work from standing work. If you have a block and a yoga strap, or if you know that your hamstrings are tight and you would rather use a chair instead of a block, grab those now. If you don't use either, that's fine. The strap's going to be useful for some of the shoulder and arm work that I'm going to ask you to do. Of course, if you don't have a yoga strap, a towel, a belt, scarf, piece of rope, whatever you got to make happen. So grab your block. Again, if you don't have a yoga block, you can use a thick book, potter pan, anything that you can squeeze the legs into. And go ahead and take that block, place it between your calf muscles so you can actively flex the calf and feel the skin and the muscle along that block, and try to flex the muscle as it touches that block. So you activate the calf muscle itself. And it's easy when we stand to just lock the knee and collapse the ankle. But when you actively flex the calf, there's a pressure change that happens in the foot where your foot begins to press down harder into the ground. That engagement of doing so is you starting to restructurally lift the body instead of just letting gravity press on it. Mr. Angar was pretty clear about that often, that a lot of yoga's work is the decompression after the compression of gravity, at least when he wrote a certain section of his work. Grab your strap. Take your strap in your right hand and just take the strap up, bending the elbow, placing the strap behind your back, down between your shoulder blades. So your right elbow is bent. If you're very tight in the elbow doesn't slip behind your head. It kind of stays out to the side. Just make sure that the elbow is not out here, like, chicken winged out, but you're lifting the elbow up so the elbow and tricep and ribs are more in a line. Take your left hand back behind you, grab the strap, climb the left hand up the strap a little bit, and pull down with the left to traction into that right shoulder. Pull up with the right arm a little bit to move the left. So you work the arms of Gomukhasana for a moment. And so just start warming up into this. And I know some of you are getting your straps and stuff like that. Class isn't going to go anywhere without you. Got all the time in the world. So here's, you squeeze the block. Working the arms into the pose, starting to warm the shoulders up. Already begin to recognize how, by engaging the arms like this, the legs have changed, or how your body weight on your feet have changed. So still continue to squeeze the block. There you go, Forrest, good. You got it, man. Continue to squeeze the block with the calves, and as you work the arms, the hands just a little bit closer together. Remember, not a big deal if your hands can't touch. This is about starting to open the shoulders and lengthen that side of your body, especially the right side in this case. And then try to keep your legs in equal activity, because when the spine shifts, pressure in the legs shift. You want to get out of the habit of gravity pressing down on the pelvis or onto our lower backs. We have to get out of the habit of letting our pelvis shift and our legs kind of just tilt or lean with it. So squeeze the calves into the block firm, not locking the knees back. Push down through the feet equally. So even though your shoulder may be tight, your ribs and back may be tight, the work happening up in the upper torso is happening. You're not compensating in the lower half. Tadasana's base should try to stay that stable action so that whatever needs to happen in the upper body can happen without cheating it, for lack of a better word. So even if you're using a towel or a blanket or whatever, you're still moving those hands in that direction. Squeeze the calf. A few more moments. And remember, try to flex the muscle of the calf along the block. This isn't just trying to compress in on the block. Can you feel the flesh of the muscle touching that, or the skin touching that block and the muscle into it, and feel like you can flex or even move any of those parts? It's more subtle, but it is important to not just engage the hips or the knees to do a lot of the work. Switch the arms, stretch the right arm out, take the left arm up and back. And then be aware, just as you start to go through this process of switching the arms like this, where you take the left arm up, bend the elbow, you take the right arm back and reach for whatever you can and start moving them towards each other. Be aware of the process and what happens in the feet and legs when you start to change it. Because when you start to change it, you start to change the arms, different stuff. If your back's tighter on one side versus the other, like I had scoliosis, so when I do one side versus the other more, the hips want to tilt quite a bit. So I have to really keep the legs stable, the calves stable, the feet stable, so that it begins to work the shoulder girdle and all the muscle in the shoulder blade in the arm that needs to work, instead of the hips twisting and my low back ended up doing a lot of it. And just breathe into it. We're not going to hold everything forever and ever, but have a few moments just to kind of experiment. Feel what it's like let your legs relax a little bit, and then feel what happens in your shoulders. And then re-engage your legs so you feel the lift again. Feel what happens when you overwork one arm more than the other, how your legs want to compensate, and then work them equally in the sense of one is not trying to just pull the other into the pose. Even though the legs and the arms are in different positions, as my teacher would say, all the limbs have to do a part, even though it may not be symmetrical. It can be very confusing for the brain, but most of us, when we get into yoga, the left or right side is really hard to learn. And then you have to learn how to move your arms behind your back in positions like this. All right, take a couple more breaths. Good, bring the strap down. Good. Go ahead, set your strap on the floor. Continue to squeeze the block between the calves. Stretch both arms straight out in front of you. You're going to cross your right arm over your left so the elbows cross. But when you get to this cross point, think about pressing through the center of the palm still so you feel the back muscles engaged, so you're not just getting it and then starting the twist of Garudasana arms. Really go for the stretch of the back before you even bend the elbows. Can you press through the palms so you feel the deltoids and the rest of the arm muscle engage into the stretch, and then keep that stretch as then you bend the arms into it. So you're not just kind of tossing one joint on the other and then ratcheting the joints to pull the muscle, but you're taking an engaged muscle and then stretching it deeply, bringing the back of the hands towards each other, the forearms towards each other. So there's an engagement all the way through, and there's a flexion in that movement, which when I first started, that was a thing that was talked about in the yoga world quite a bit back in 2002, I think, 2003. How to engage graceful movement in it. Because at that time, a lot of the videos of the teachers were them doing these very incredibly powerful movements, supposing they looked like it was very easy. Mr. Iyengar in his therapy work talked about when you take a muscle, engage it, so flexion, and then through flexion, after you flex the muscle, then begin to stretch it. Because an overly stretched muscle is too inflexible to be stable, and instability causes more pain and problems. So even here, even though the elbows are bent and you can kind of press the arms into each other, still think about that stretch and action from the shoulder down through the elbow. Your arms are still trying to cross deeply, even though you're using the forearms now and the bend of the elbow to create that. Lift the elbows up maybe an inch or two. Keep your chin up. And now from here, when your spine lifted like this and the elbows up, you kind of engage a lot more of the top of the shoulder blade down to the arm. Now round your upper back like you're stretching your elbows away from you. And it's not bending at your hips. You're literally, it's going to feel like a slouch. You're rounding your upper back, stretching your elbows away from you so you engage to a wider upper back, mid back. Take a few breaths. Breathe into the backside of the body like that so you get the full release of the lungs moving the ribs massaging the muscle. Keep your elbows up. And every so often, check in. Don't let your elbows try to come down into your ribs and diaphragm. Keep your elbows lifted ever so slightly, even if you're just trying to flex the muscle to do that, right? Bring the body up. Drop the arms for a second. Take a breath, and on your exhale, lift the arms up. Left arm's going to cross over right and engage into that stretch where you're pushing through those palms. So there's that active flexion of that muscle. And then when you bend the elbows, there becomes the lengthening and stretching of those muscles. So you're creating strength and range of motion. And even once you're here, you're still stretching from the shoulder towards the elbows so they cross deeper. Lift the elbows up slightly and just breathe into that. The deepest action of the upper arm or the upper shoulder stretch. Keep the elbows lifted slightly, round the upper back, continuing to move the elbows away from the chest a little bit. So you broaden the mid and upper back. Elbows up here. Just take a few breaths into that. I can recognize in my own self, and this may not be true for everyone else, that because of being stuck at home so much in the circumstances we are in, the feeling of I have to push really fast, get moving, get the heart rate up is there. But if you take time to breathe and kind of move a little deeper into your poses and flex the muscles as you move into your poses, you'll find a lot of what you're looking for. You'll find that circulation happens, that, as one of my students said, it's like you're flushing the body with oxygen. So take a time in every pose you're doing to do that a little bit. It has a calming effect for one, and it connects you to what you're going through, right? You are not separate from your body or your life. Bring your body up. Take the arms out. Go ahead, take the block out from between your calf muscles. Set it to the side. Go ahead, stand your feet apart, 3.5 to 4 foot. So a wide straddle, please. So nice wide open straddle. Make sure the toes are still pointing forward. Place the hands on the hips. Press down on the hands onto the hips so you can lift your spine up a little bit. And you feel the tendency there to shrug the shoulder joints forward, pull the shoulder joint back, lift the chest up more so you feel the skin and the flesh across your upper chest bones, the sternum to pec muscles, stretch. So when you get that stretch and that lift, feel that, breathe into that stretch. Exhale, fold forward, stretching out and down. But as you go down, notice when you start to lose that stretch of the chest and your shoulders want to roll forward. Lead with the heart and the stretched chest first, as far as you can down, because that's going to keep your spine long, keep your back engaged. And then when you've gone as far as you can, let your hands hit the floor. But try to keep that same lift, that same length. It's much harder to get into the poses like this because what it's asking you to do is move into your poses with a sense of structure. And this is because, like I said earlier, that old Vedantic saying that you're not separate from your mind, or you're not separate from your thoughts, you're not separate from your practice. Don't just throw yourself into a pose and then see what happens. Read it all the way down. When you are aware of how you get into the structure, that will inform you of what's happening in the structure. So that if something starts to happen inside of it, you're a little more ready and aware of what you can do to change it, adjust it, help it feel better. Hands on the floor or on your blocks or on your chair, whatever prop you need to be comfortable in the hamstring. Engaged, but comfortable. And then once it's there, it's easy to start checking out. The eyes want to close, but check back in with yourself. Are your feet even? Use your eyesight. Are your legs even? Are you flexing the muscles on each leg equally? Take your hands wide like you're going to grab the big toe of each foot. And if you can grab each foot, go forward. Use the index and middle finger to grab the big toe of each foot. Now, if you cannot, because you're tight, hamstrings are tight, your hands are on blocks, it's okay to take the blocks wide. Just take the arms wide. Again, making space on the front of the chest. So even here, if your hands are on blocks or on a chair, just go to your fingertips so you feel the bicep flex a little and stretch your chest open again. If you are grabbing the big toes on each foot, pull up on the big toes by bending your elbows wide. So as you bend the elbows wide, you feel that chest bone open and the heart descend down into the pose. So you're not trying to roll the shoulder joint forward, but you're drawing the chest down. If you're not grabbing the big toes and you're just fingertips are on the floor, just bend the elbows a little bit to start training the upper back to lead you down into the pose. Take a few breaths. Bring the body up. Good. Bring the feet together. Go ahead, lay on your stomach for a moment. Let's measure your down dog length. If you don't remember the down dog length, lay flat on your stomach. Place your palms flat under your shoulders. Come up to your hands and knees. The distance between your knees and hands and where your feet are, where your feet should be. Don't narrow it or widen it beyond that. So with your palms flat to the floor, turn your toes under, lift your hips up into the air. When you lift your hips up, going into your down dog for a moment, feel it, because this is your down dog. Whether you're a beginning practitioner or experienced, you all have a level that you're working at. And that's good. You should always reconnect to that moment because that's where you are. And we want to, and I, as your teacher, want to teach you where you are, not like make weird demands where you should be. So start breathing here. And then we're going to work the hands a little bit. So lean forward, like your shoulders are coming above your hands, like you're going to plank for a moment. And then look at your hands while holding this position. And try to press between the index finger and thumb harder and shift more of your weight from the heel of your hand towards the front four joints in that big pad of muscle. If this is hard, turn your hands out slightly, your fingers out slightly to help develop that strength to push through the fingers and those 5 joints, or the 4 joints, I should say. Then push back to downward dog, but don't lose the strength in the hand like that. Try to maintain that stretch that comes from the forearm and the hand by pushing through the front 4 joints in that pad of muscle, and then lift your hips up and see the difference. Good. As my teacher would like to say, try to lift your forearm up as you push the whole hand down. It's going to make your shoulders work a little differently, and that's what we're going to get into some more shoulder stuff here in just a moment. But just take another breath. Can you open your chest up in the same way you did into standing straddle? So you're not pulling your shoulders down, but you're drawing the chest bone down, the pec muscle down. All right, come down to your knees for a second. So you're going to take the end of your yoga mat and you're going to roll it up slightly so you can wrap your hands around it. Tristan's doing a real good job right now of demoing that. She just rolls it up a roll or two. It's not a big deal. But you're going to grab a hold of it and you're going to hold on to that in the, just for anatomy sake here, there's the nail of each finger and then there's the first and second knuckle before you get to the big knuckles. You want the flat of that flange right there between the first and second knuckle on the floor. So it looks like this part of the fist, the punchy part of your fist would be facing forward. So the rolled up blanket, knuckle on the floor, hands are about shoulder width apart. Start pulling the yoga mat apart, push down through the hands and lift your hips into down dog again. How's that feel? So when you're pulling the yoga mat apart like this, roll the knuckles of your hands away from your wrist because they want to roll up to the ceiling because you want to put all your weight in your wrist. Roll the knuckles of your hands away and pull the mat apart. Roll the index and pinky side of the hand away. So you're really stretching the inner and outer forearm into this. Feel the difference in your shoulders now? So you get this extension and opening in your shoulders. It'll make your arms more tired, but your arms should be tired in this. It will challenge your wrist and your hands. But those of us that ask, like, how do I get my hands to stop hurting, or remove arthritis, or get stronger in my handstands even, this is a big part of it, is learning to extend the forearm muscles like that. Good. Take another breath.
Hey, Dustin, can I look at the hand position again, please? It's going in my shoulders. Yeah.
It's just curl your hand around the mat. The hand is on the ground like this. This part's touching the floor. This part's rolling that way. Yeah, just grab the mat and roll. No, not back, away from you. There. All right. One more time, up and down dog. So holding onto the mat, roll the knuckles away from you, pull the yoga mat apart. Hips back. Good. When you stretch the heels back don't just push the heel down, but look at your heels and know that there's an inner heel and an outer heel, and stretch your outer heel down faster than your inner heel. So remember how you had to squeeze the block with the calf or calves into the block? Same action. Those calf muscles have to flex. So you're not pushing the ankle down, but the outer heel down. Take a breath. Nice. Come on down for a second. Unroll your mat. Take your palms flat to the floor again. Thing is that when you get into the hand positions in down dog, you're actually, what you're asking is not how to get more range of motion from your shoulders. Your shoulders are already very flexible. But each time you change the hand position, you're going to change the muscles in your shoulder that work. So now, with your palms flat, try to spread the pinky joint, the thumb joint, and the index joint. You look at those three joints, that little triangle. Try to spread those 3 points away from each other, not the fingers. The fingers will manipulate. But think about the palm, inside the palm muscle spreading those 3 digits, those 3 points apart to make a very wide palm. Do that with your palms on the floor, your hands and knees on the floor. Spread your palms as hard as you can like that and try to put pressure into those 3 spots so they spread more. And now keep that pressure as you go to down dog. Try not to lose it at any point. Hips up and back. Where you feel pressure in your hand and down dog and where you don't can tell you some stuff about what's going on in your shoulders and your neck. If you feel more pressure in the pinky side of the hand, you know, it tells me you've probably got some shoulder issues, upper back issues. If you've got no pressure in your palm and it's all in your wrist, very tight chest, that's pulling your shoulders out of place. Stuff like that. It doesn't matter exactly, but you need to try and spread those 3 joints as much as you can. So you can't push your neck and shoulders down into the pose, but you have to lift your hips back and stretch your ribs longer to make it work, because this is about lengthening the spine, decompressing from gravity. Hips back and up, Ryan. A few more seconds. Nice. Come on down for a moment. Okay. So sitting back on your feet, you're going to take your palms out in front of you, palms up, take your fingertips down to the floor, and stretch your wrist towards the floor as Tristan's demoing. We can explore the hand and the shoulders a little bit more and what flexion is. So as Tristan is sitting back on her feet as best she can, and for some of us, this will be challenging for your knees and your feet. Your hips may be lifted a little bit. Take the opportunity to stretch it out. And with your stretching your wrist down to the floor, spread your fingers as wide as you can again. Spread your fingers out, especially the thumb from the index and the pinky from the ring, so that you start to stretch those muscles that run through the forearm more. This will be very challenging for some of us, especially those of us that type a lot. And then notice while you're here, do your shoulders kind of crawl up to your neck? Can you drop your shoulders from your ears? And then if you want more stretch, spread your index and ring finger away from your middle, and then walk your hands away from you just an inch or two. You'll start to really stretch those arms out. All right, now bring your wrist up, turn your palms to face you, and take the back of the hands to the floor as best you can. When you take the back of the hand to the floor, spread the fingers out again and try to push the thumbnail down. This is very hard to do, to find the strength to push that thumbnail into the floor from this position and then straighten the elbows. And then drop the shoulders from your neck. When I first started doing yoga, my teacher called me a silverback gorilla because I couldn't get my wrists to the floor. My elbows were bent and I was all hunched over like a gorilla. So as you're here, press and you start pressing the thumbnail down, then try to press the other 4 fingernails down. And this will challenge all different parts of the wrist because it's not about how hard you jam your wrist into the floor. Your wrist might touch the floor over time, but can you engage the palm and the whole of the arm to push the nails and the extension of the fingers down so that you work all the muscle through the hand, through the forearm, even into your elbow and shoulder and neck over time, right? Over flexibility isn't going to serve us. Even if we're already tight, if we push flexibility on it, certain muscles will get flexible faster than others and we get hurt. Keeping the muscles not gripped, but gently engaged, and then finding the movement of them will teach them to move in a healthy way and give you grace in your movement and also a lot more power and stability. All right, flip the hands back over to palms flat. Fingertips pointed towards you. And then try to spread the fingers wide. Walk the hands a little bit away from your body. Shoulders away from your neck. Breathe. And then just as in our standing poses, we engage the lower body to help open the upper body, you do the same here. So as you're doing this with the palms and the fingers, your hips may not be on your heels, but can you press your feet down into the floor? Can you press the top of the foot harder into the floor and your knees into the floor so that you're not just rounding on your spine, but the muscle that holds your joints is helping the folds you're doing. See the difference? Turn your hands over so the back of the hand is on the floor again. To press the nails of the fingers down. Yeah, it's just not fun on the hands. It's like you're working on stuff that's been tight for a long time. I do this daily and it's still tight sometimes. So once you're here, do the best you can. Spread your fingers, push the thumbnail down, straighten the elbows, drop the shoulders from your ears, push down through the knee and the foot. So those parts of your body are active in the pose. Couple more seconds. All right, take your hands out. Enough of that. Yeah, right. Downward dog, please. Palms flat. So you just spread out the palm of the hand and work the wrist in the structure of the whole arm, basically. So while you're here in down dog, don't push yourself as hard into it as you can. Back off of just enough that you can hold it for an extra 20 seconds. Look at your hands and look at the whiteness on your hands, where if you're pressing white in some areas, that means you're over pressing or rolling those fingers. You're not actually getting into the palm. So press the palms down more in those parts. So if like your pinky and ring finger are turning white or paler, push down through that side of the palm more. Look to see if any fingers are gripping and try to stretch them out so you put more pressure in the joint. And if you remember the muscles of your hand that you were stretching and flexing when you were doing those hand exercises, especially now, press from the tips of your nails, press from the nail down through the pad of the finger, and then stretch your hips back. Ooh, nice. Feel the difference? So it's not going to be as deep a down dog as visible where you feel like you're really in your shoulders, but your arms are going to be stronger. So you have to learn down dog then from an action of your hips lifting than just your body putting pressure on those poor shoulder joints. So now flex your thighs, pick your heels way up off the floor, and can you lift your thigh bones up as high into the air, like you're lifting the back side of your buttock and broadening it. Down dog is a wonderful stretch for the glute and the hip, but you need to let it lift and widen. So for a moment, flex your buttocks really, really hard, and then pull your hips up higher, and then back. Stretch your heels back, but your butt doesn't come down. If your glutes come down when you stretch your heels down, a teacher would say, you're not using your legs, you're only using your joints. So try again. Pick your heels way up, pick your glutes up higher, keep that glute lift. So think about your thighs and your hamstrings picking your buttocks up, and your calves stretching your heel down. So there's a split separation on the back side of the leg. And you probably lost your hands in there, but like I said, this is an awareness practice that is, everything we do is happening to us. It's being recorded on us. All right, come on down for a moment. Neat. You okay? Take a moment, free your shoulders up. Cross your right wrist over your left wrist. Sit back on your feet. Turn your palms down and then in. So it's starting here, whoop, and interlace your fingers. Bend your elbows wide, rolling the knuckles up towards your chin. Drop the shoulder away from your neck and ear. So here, already start to feel the lacing of the fingers. And it's not going to be about gripping super hard, but try to keep your lacing firm. Shoulders down, stretch your arms out to whatever degree that may be. And for some of us, you're like here and it's over. But then notice how much your body rolls down with it. Try to keep your chest up, your shoulders down, and stretch your arms open into it like an elephant trunk unfurling. You get some openness of the chest back. So whatever degree you're at, this is not a passive pose, just like all the stuff. Once you're here or even here, it's not over. The action is not just to push down, it's actually to push your palms together harder. So back off of how hard you've extended, and then try to push your palms together harder and then stretch out your hands a little bit. You might find more moves in your shoulder blades than just in your wrist joint. You may not go as far either, but you are actively moving the upper back to shoulder muscles that make this pose hard. Because a bunch of people, when I teach this, they get to here and they go, well, I'm just going to break my wrist. And that's true, you will, because this is not about how flexible your wrists are. It's how much you can widen your back and stretch your shoulders into it, your shoulder blades into it to unfurl the arm. So push the palms tight together, backed up a little bit, and then move out while pressing the palms in and extending, right? Flexibility is not going to happen evenly unless you engage all of your body into the movement. Uncurl the arms, stretch out. So right wrist over left now. Turn the palms down and then towards each other, interlace. Bend the elbows wide, rolling the knuckles up so the elbows drop. There. Push the palms tight, whatever side is opposite. Some of you are doing different than what I said. Even Tristan is. It's okay. There's no script here. We're doing it live. Press your palms nice and tight, and then as you stretch the arms out, continue to try to keep that pressure of the palms coming together so you're really asking the muscles in your shoulder blade back to do the greater work. And even though your wrist might feel it, your elbows might feel it, this is again just identifying how much structurally comes from the upper back and shoulder that radiates down the arm and how you can affect it back the opposite way. I mean, a lot of old yoga teachings and Vedantic teachings are totally just about connection, right? Like I said, the old saying at the meditative part of class, you are not separate from your thoughts. You are not separate from what's happening to your body. That doesn't mean that trauma doesn't make us want to, but we're not. So hold for a few more breaths. Let the body do some work. Go ahead and uncurl the arms. So still on your feet, sitting back if you can. Take both hands back behind you onto the floor. Fingertips to the floor and lean back so you're at an angle. So you're going to lay back just enough that your palms can get to the floor, and you walk your hands back underneath your shoulder joints. For some of us, this can be very hard on the knees or the foot. If you need a yoga block under your hips more than your heels, that's okay, get it. Or if you can't take your heels to your hip to your heels because your knees are not able to go that low, it's okay to put like some padding on your heels so you can sit on something and your hands on blocks. Like, we can build up. I know that they're talking about doing workshops at the studio, and I might do a workshop on like, easy ways to modify with household items. Get some pots and pans out, show you some stuff. So from here, start with the legs, because now you're moving the spine, and however you move the spine, the legs need to be involved. So as your hands are back behind you, whether on blocks or a chair or a pet, push down through your knee joints. Mr. Engar was very clear about this. He said there's just too many yoga poses. People do too many yoga poses passively in the legs. Actively push the knee down. If the knee can be on the floor naturally without hurting it, like, in Padmasana or whatever, great. These poses, he was very clear. Flex your thighs and push your knees down to teach your hamstrings and knee joints to move better. This also moves your hips. So it's not about lifting your hips up, but push your knees down and then tuck your buttocks under you as deep as you can. So the quad begins to move. And then push down through your palms like you have been the whole rest of class, through the pad space between the index finger and thumb, and try to spread the fingers out. This gets hard every time we move the position of the hands instead of just in front of us, spread, right? Any manipulation of the shoulder, like we move the hands behind us, we move it across or even out to the side, it changes how the fingers can spread. That's why this is so hard. When you try to spread your fingers from this position in a backward bend, your arms will get tired very quickly. A few more seconds. Tuck the hips. Push through the arms. Come on up for a second so your hands get a rest. We're going to do it again. We'll add to it too, because I want to give you some backward bend that you can do that really is about opening up the upper back. I'm a big fan of doing a lot of backward bends with a lot of props, but I'm here to teach with minimal props right now. And also how we get that shoulder girdle open. All right, so you're going to take your hands back in. Watch Tristan on this one first. We're going to do the same thing, but I'm going to add something to it that's a little tricky. When you go back and you push down through the knees and push down through the foot, you tuck the buttock under. Right? Now, don't lift your hips, just tuck your glutes under as deep as you can. The fingers point towards the toes, but this is now where we get into the shoulder girdle itself. We have to make space from the chest bone to the shoulder joint. That comes from rotating the arm open as deep as you can. So turn your face out. Come back closer. Tris is going to come close to the camera, and I'm going to show you. So from here, scoot forward 2 inches. Perfect. We're getting it down. All right. When she comes back into the pose, fingers are pointing forward. I can tell you that's true. Instead of making the work come from her shoulder and neck joint doing the work right here. So all of her her spine weight is kind of just on this point. It's going to be very uncomfortable. The more that she rolls her biceps out without moving the hands, the fingers got to stay pointing towards the feet. She has to push through the hands and then roll her biceps out. The more she's going to get deeper into moving this tight upper thoracic and get the lift of the sternum here. So she takes a breath. She rotates. I'm not going to pull on her. She'll beat me up later. And she's starting to shake. So she's already there. And she comes on up. Good. So it's that action of that rotation. You're not just pinching the blades in. You're trying to rotate the biceps as deep as you can out while your hands are still pointing towards your feet. That will really get in there. All right, to your mats. Here we go. So, sitting back on your heels, walk your hands back under your shoulders. So you don't want the hands really close to your hips. You want them back so that there's an actual little bit of weight on the shoulder blade itself. That's the flexion part. Because most of the time our shoulders flex when we're leaning forward. This can be very hard because they're not used to flexing backwards. You want to get good at backward bends and get rid of headaches. You got to learn this one though. Push down through the palms, right? You've already done all the hand work. You've got all the hand muscle. Great. Push down through the palm. Now, rotate the biceps without spinning the hands. You can feel like the hand is going to drag and twist the yoga mat all day long. But the more you rotate those biceps out, so the muscle work has to happen deep in your shoulder blade. For me, the best way I can describe it, feels like the inner shoulder blade is pinching into my rib cage and broadening my chest. The arm gets very tired doing this because it takes a lot of bicep flexion, and then you push down harder through the hands as you roll out. Feel that? Tuck your hips. This is the beginning of a pose where you'll often see people practice it where they fully lay back and then their hands go and grab their feet and they go into this very deep backward bend. That's a full triangle. This is the part of it though that is there to reconstruct the upper back muscles. So push down through the feet, push down through the knees, tuck your hips so the work has to happen solely from your upper back. Rotate the biceps any degree more, go from the shoulder blades, down through the arm, spread the fingers, and then twist those biceps out. It's going to feel like your hands want to drag and twist the yoga mat. All right, up you go. Nicely done. Lay on your backs. Now, because if you follow the old rhythm and the old sequencing that the Iyengar method put out, standing leads to forward, forward folds lead to backward bends lead to inversion/twists. So let's just do one twist briefly to relieve the back after that. Draw your left knee to the body. Take your right hand to the outside of your left knee. Push the leg into the hand and the hand into the leg with the knee bent and pulled up like that. Really get those two fighting. Get both halves engaged. And then your leg goes across, your whole pelvis twists, taking your left knee to the outside of the right side of your body. But your leg still pushes into your hand and your hand into the knee. Keep the two resisting each other the whole time. Your ankle does not cross your knee, Pratima. That's not the pose we're doing. Your right leg is straight. There you go, Pratima. Good job. You got it. Right leg is straight. It's just down on the floor. But your left knee is pushing into the hand. The hand is pushing into the knee. It's not about getting your knee to the floor. It's about both muscle sets working against each other. Because I'm not so much interested in how much torque we can put just in the lower back, but the leg working and the arm working puts more of the twist in your upper back. It gives some relief there. All right, untwist. Stretch your left leg straight, bend your right knee to the body. Take your left hand to the outside of the right knee. Push the knee into the hand, hand into the knee. Get the two fighting each other first, really strong, and then roll your pelvis over so your upper body is on the floor still. Your chest is open up, but you're rotating the whole pelvis around. So you're not just throwing your leg over and your groin and your back grips. And you may have some hip to mid-low back stuff here, but the more you push that knee into that hand and that hand into that knee, that leg is active, the more you're going to keep it in your mid and upper back, all the stuff we've been working. And even here, practice pushing all of your palm down into that knee. Good. Take a nice breath. Don't have to hold twist long, but be aware that, again, when you're breathing, every breath you take in, especially in twists, the lungs move the ribs, ribs massage the muscle. There's your relief. Untwist, stretch your legs out. Let the eyes close for a few minutes. We'll take a short savasana, and then I'll ring the bell and you'll go off to your day. So, my friends, support yourself in any way you need in this restorative. Something under your legs if your low back is tired. Something under your neck if you feel tight in the shoulder still. Let the eyes close. If the art of yoga is to bring awareness to the body, then how in our practice can we be more connected to what we're doing? Some yogis read books on anatomy, some on philosophy. Some teach it as an act of service. Some practice the physical work every day to get a little more insight. Recognize when you get on the mat, my friends, all the things that want to put a barrier between you and your thoughts, you and your experiences, and you and what you can get from your practice. And we may not always be able to practice in a perfect environment, in cool rooms or places that are quiet. We may not even always have good teachers. But what we always do have is the awareness of what we're going through and what tries to disconnect us from it. What fights for your attention in quiet moments on your mat? And are those the things that you choose to give yourself to? Just as we don't play music in this class when we practice because music's another distraction. What does your own ego, your fears, throw up in the way of you or tell you to go do instead of spending 5 minutes connecting, gaining discipline, and removing that barrier of that illusion that you are disconnected from your life? Recognize those things, my friends, those chitti vrittis, those false things, so that no matter what circumstances you find your practice, it will be a good practice because it'll be a practice of yours, of your work, your experience, and ultimately advancing your path on life. So rest, my friends, for the next few minutes until I ring the bell, and enjoy the fruits of your yogic practice. slowly increase the depths of your breathing. Begin to awaken the body, opening, closing the hands, pointing, flexing the feet. Bend your knees, rolling your body to the right side. Press your palms into the floor and slowly up you come. All right, until we meet again, namaste. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to stick around.